You've never seen a person of tremendous influence who didn't have some sense of control over their energy. The most influential people in your life have carried themselves with unmistakable vitality and positivity. Those high-value qualities are generated in our minds and in our bodies. An alpha is a man of energy. If his mission is to have life, create life in himself and others, and preserve life, he must be focused on the needs of his body. He must use it as a machine that helps him deliver high-level energy into his daily life and share contagious energy with those in his influence. How a man manages the care of his physical machine is a predictor of his successes with everything and everyone with which he is involved.
If you're a man that controls his own destiny, a man that is always in the pursuit of being better, you are in the right place. You are responsible. You are strong. You are a leader. You are a force for good. Gentlemen, you are the Alpha, and this is the Alpha Quorum.
Welcome back to the Alpha Quorum Show. Brad Singletary here. You guys, I'm so very excited about what we have going on today. I've got two medical professionals joining us today. I'm going to introduce them here in just a second, but we're in a series right now talking about the Red 9, some principles of living a healthy life, and this one has to do with energy. We talked a few episodes ago with Joshua Roy, who talked about some of the psychology of energy and how we can use our bodies to produce good moods and those kinds of things. These two guys come from the medical world and are also very talented and disciplined in their care of their own physical bodies, and including some fitness and some pretty high level things that they've been involved with. And I want to first introduce Gavin Hillman. He's a firm believer in the importance of physical health and how it can affect multiple other facets of a man's life. He has been actively engaged in structured and organized physical health for over 25 years. As a young man, he participated in various sports and training, working as a personal trainer as he got himself through school. He earned a Bachelor of Science in Exercise Science from the University of New Mexico, then moved on to his doctorate in physical therapy from UNLV. For the past decade, he has specialized in working with a geriatric population with physical rehabilitation from various orthopedic, neurologic, cardiovascular, and other medical conditions. He's 16 years married with 3 wonderful children. He continues to keep his physical health a priority and regularly takes part in running events, hikes, biking, and scheduled gym time for resistance training. Gavin, thank you for being here, man. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I have a little story that your wife shared with me about you. Are you embarrassed about what this might?
Yeah. Who knows what that could be? So yeah, let's hear it.
Gavin has a beautiful family and a great wife. She's a friend of my wife, and both of these guys actually live in my neighborhood. And so she's quite a colorful person, but she said, I remember the first time we did a Tough Mudder. It was the very first event ever, and it was advertised as a big, strong muscle man type of event, which it turned out not to be. And Gavin was pretty confident going in. The entire group was. She said at mile 3, Gavin's legs started cramping, and everyone could see his quads contracting with every step, and he was grunting. He was in agonizing pain. She said, I've never seen a man in that much pain in my life. He grunted and grunted with every step and completed another 11 miles to finish the race. He showed us all that day that was the true meaning of grit. When he puts his mind to something, he does it. Thank you for being here, man. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. I do remember that. And she's right. That was a lot of pain that day. And yes, but we did finish. We finished our race.
If I get a cramp here, you guys, I'm assuming will know what to do to help me here. Our second guest is Tanner Smith. Tanner is an emergency room physician assistant with over 7 years of experience. He worked the night of the Las Vegas mass shooting on October 1st, 2017. Their emergency room team saw around 200 patients in roughly the span of 2 hours as a result of the shooting. As an outlet for stress and maintaining physical fitness, he enjoys running and cycling daily. He He has qualified and completed the Boston Marathon 3 times and has a personal record in the marathon running in 2 hours and 52 minutes. He enjoys promoting fitness and helping people stay active by coaching people looking to get into running, and leads weekly group runs for Lifetime Athletic Club here in Henderson, Nevada. Tanner, dude, I was just talking about, as he walked in, Tanner lives 2 doors down from me, and I was thinking, who is his celebrity double? And I thought, it's Jesus. He looks a little bit like Jesus here.
Today I do, right?
Both of these guys are world-class alphas, and you're going to find out why as we get talking here. We're talking about health, but I had a story about you, Tanner, and I'm friends with Tanner's brother, Trevor, who also used to live in our neighborhood and has since moved to another place with his family. But I asked him about his brother, Tanner, and he told me something pretty special about you, about one of the Boston marathons where you performed CPR on a lady who was running and basically saved a person's life who had a cardiac arrest right there in a marathon. And he sent me the article, which I'll post in the show notes here, where you were in Runner's World magazine, featured in there with this lady, where you were, she has a 9-month-old kid and is basically, I guess, laying there having some episode. Well, good thing this is your day in and day out work as an emergency room physician assistant, and so you're sitting there performing CPR. What an awesome story.
Yeah, I mean, it was the most recent Boston Marathon, honestly. So it was just here a couple months ago in October, and I've seen dozens of cardiac arrests come into the ER, and you've got all your equipment, everything all laid out, and you're getting a story of what's going on and everything. So to be running a marathon and being focused on your race, and then all of a sudden, you see somebody laying in the middle of the course that's just absolutely, blue. There's no color to their skin. It's a different experience than what you see, on a day-to-day working basis. But honestly, it was a complete miracle to see how well she's doing at this point in time. Honestly, fortunately, most people don't do that well, especially if they go down in a situation like that. So, I mean, I've chatted with her here and there, and seems like she's recovering fine. She's actually even starting to do some running, but yeah, she's got a 9-month-old child, and it's just amazing that she has, no problems as far as a result of this cardiac arrest that she experienced, and she's able to go about taking care of her child and still enjoy things that she likes doing. So it's a miracle. I don't know how else to describe that experience.
Dude, that's amazing. People have asked me, the name of this whole thing, the Alpha Quorum, it probably was some half-baked idea, and I hate some of the super kind of worldly, kind of the bastardized use of the word alpha, and I hate the association with what some people see that to mean. I think what an alpha is what these two men are, and you'll find out as we get going here. But one of the things we talk about is he has life. He creates life, not necessarily just having children, but you're creating life in other people, and you preserve life. To be an alpha is about life. And here's an example, well, in both of you and what you're doing, but in this a profound way where you're literally saving someone's life. You don't have your equipment. You're probably several miles in. How far into the race were you? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was getting close to mile 8. So
you've been running for 8 miles. Hold on. Let me save this lady's life. Do you keep in touch? It sounds like you've got some contact.
Yeah, we kind of keep in touch between just social media and Instagram and messaging back and forth, and we've kind of talked over Zoom a little bit and stuff. But I mean, it sounds crazy, mile 8 doing CPR, but honestly, the best thing about that race, after not only the fact that she's doing so well, but the additional 18 miles I had in the race to just kind of reflect and run and think about it. So
that is just wild. And was that your personal record race? Was that the one, or did I'm guessing?
No. We were
take some time out of
it.
Yeah,
I took a little time off the clock, stopping to do CPR, but it was still a good race. I mean, I ended up running 3:12, but that wasn't the important thing of that day. So
wow, that's crazy. Just even to qualify. So that's not any average Joe Schmo gets to do that, right? You have to reach a certain pinnacle before you can even show up to that, right? Not everyone can be there.
Yeah. So for Boston, they have qualifying times based on your age, whether you're male or female. And so you have to run a race on a Boston qualifying course and meet that time standard in order to get into the race.
So you guys are friends, and I understand that you're kind of doing some training together right now. Is that true? Is that who's training who, and what's happening with tell me about how you know each other and your friendship and so forth.
Yes, we are doing a little bit of running together. I mean, Tanner is the runner. I do not claim to be a runner. I do run. But he's the guy that I go to when I need advice, or if I need a training schedule or somebody to keep me accountable to get out there and run. Tanner's the guy.
Sometimes I get up in the morning. I mentioned that Tanner's 2 doors down, and I get up in the morning. I'm barely awake. It's 7 o'clock or so. I'm taking the kids to school or whatever, and Tanner's sitting around in his driveway sipping on, I don't know, some Gatorade or some water, and he's already cooled off from he's probably already run miles and miles that day, and he's already there, and he's no longer sweating, and he's just kind of calming down, maybe just being reflective. And I just think I would love to be able to do that. And maybe someday I get to the point where I'm just afraid to run right now. If you see me running, something bad is happening. So check in with me.
You'll be all right. You just got to start. Everybody has to start at some spot. So
I would be happy if I was walking. I would be happy if I walked 26.2 miles. So appreciate you guys being here, man. So really briefly, talk about your profession. So we know, Gavin, that you're a physical therapist.
Correct.
By the way, these guys are licensed medical professionals, and whatever they talk about today, don't interpret that to mean any, medical advice or anything like that. This is a podcast, so don't get it twisted. We're just talking, and they're sharing from their experiences, but please don't take anything they say as any specific, instruction from a medical person to you. But so you're working with people in a rehab type facility, or what's the?
Yeah, so it's an inpatient rehabilitation center. So it's primarily geriatrics, or your older folks. And these are individuals who have gone to the hospital for various reasons. Maybe they fell, broke a hip, or elective surgeries like knee replacements or hip replacements, or also individuals that got sick. They had a stroke, or they had some type of respiratory issues. And so they went to the hospital, they stayed in the hospital for X amount of time. They got very weak, and so they're not able to go home. So they come to us, and we'll see them for a few weeks, try to build them back up and help facilitate them going on to hopefully home.
Okay. And then Tanner, how about yourself, sir?
So I work at primarily Sunrise emergency room right now. Our group covers several emergency departments throughout the valley, but that's where I'm primarily working. And it's one of those things. I don't try to search out the most difficult or complicated patients to take care of, but sometimes, like the 1st of October, we didn't really have a choice. We were there to help whoever came through the door. So I see a variety of things. It could be anything from a broken bone to appendicitis, or any of these types of things. So, and it can be even just something as simple as giving somebody something to eat. But it's you never know. I think that's the thrill about emergency medicine, is you never know what's going to walk in the door and what surprises you'll face, and everybody's different. So some things that you would think are like a normal presentation for a kidney stone might have something entirely different going on.
Yeah. So I'm curious about some of the most common things that you see. And, our audience here is men, mostly men. Maybe 20% of our listeners are women, but mostly men, probably from the age range of 25 to 55, with an average maybe of, this is a 40-year-old dad, if you can just picture that. What are the most common medical ailments that lead men to, either a medical emergency for you, Tanner, or some kind of injury? What kind of problems are people having because they're not taking care of their health?
Well, one of the unfortunate things that I would say is, we get your everyday, sprains, strains, broken bones, things like that just happen from day-to-day life, people being active, doing things. But when I was in school, we were always trained, type 2 diabetes is this medical illness that affects people that are primarily older in age, meaning like, above 50, 55, 60. You know, it's the diabetes for the older generation.
Mm-hmm.
The sad thing is due to the lifestyle that, you know, the American lifestyle that we've adopted, and how easily it is to get a hold of fast food, or, you know, whatever it is, we're starting to see type 2 diabetes being diagnosed in a much, much younger population. I mean, it's affecting even, you know, teenagers to adolescents, whereas this is an illness that was primarily only being diagnosed in an older population. So, you know, it's interesting. It just goes to show, you know, how much taking care of your body actually matters. So, and the thing is diabetes is one of those complications and one of those diseases that really, unfortunately, causes a lot of problems for more than just having a high blood sugar. It affects the heart, it affects the kidneys, it affects the skin. I mean, you name it, diabetes can contribute to a problem with that part of your body.
And with that one specifically, what leads to that?
So there is type 1 diabetes, and unfortunately, you know, some people, diabetes type 1, you know, you're pretty much born with that. I mean, it's, you know, you're just not producing insulin. But the way that type 2 diabetes, you know, and the easiest way of explaining that, pretty much what happens is our body produces insulin for us, and depending on our diet, you know, every time we eat food, our body's like, hey, I'm going to create insulin, and that's going to cause the body to take all of those, you know, nutrients and absorb them and hold on to them to store them up, or, you know, send them some other place in the body to utilize them. So when you're eating, you know, really lots of food or just really high sugar food, your body has to increase the amount of insulin that it's producing and secreting in the body. So if you're continuously doing that all day long, eventually your body's like, hey, well, am I really getting that much, you know? And then it's like a signal, you know, it's like a little boy that cries wolf, you know, you keep crying, and it's like, well, do I respond to that anymore? And so the body thinks of it the same way. It's like, well, there's a lot of insulin. Do I really need to respond and do something with all this, you know, sugar or whatever else is nutrients in the blood? And eventually it just gets worn out and it's not functioning anymore.
Wow. So when you see that coming in, I mean, you're kind of like, well, here's another complication that maybe could have been prevented based on, you know, health choices. So some of that, at least with the type 2, right?
A lot of it can be prevented. And, you know, from what we see, you know, I see those, like I said, that I'm dealing with a lot of older generation, the geriatrics, and I see how those effects of poor decisions that they made for a lifetime and how it affects them now that they're in their later years in life. So when you talk about the hypertensions and the diabetes, and now they're at higher risk for strokes and for cardiovascular diseases and pulmonary diseases, and their ability just to function, everyday function, has declined, and just doing simple things of getting up out of bed or sitting up in a chair for a while or trying to get up and go across the room to go to the bathroom, those have become so difficult and so laborious for them, because they have made this lifetime choice of not taking care of themselves.
These two guys are a picture of health. We talked about their, you know, their running and some of their activities and competing and so forth. I'm guessing that what you see out there, maybe you would just be the typical chubby guy if you didn't see that stuff day in and day. I wonder if it motivates you, like, whoa, I don't want to be like this guy, you know, when I'm 50 years old, or I do not want to, you know, I want to preserve my strength. Does that help you stay motivated?
Yes, it can. It can motivate. I mean, I've had several patients where I come out of there and I just think to myself, yes, I do not want to end up like that. Like, life's, you know, sometimes we'll, you know, joke around, and you come out of a bariatric patient who's 350 pounds, and it's just so difficult to take care of them. And everything is so hard to be able to help them. And you come out of there and you just think, man, life's harder when you're fat. Like, it really is. Like, that's just, you know, it's just the truth. Like, it makes things harder. If you're not taking care of yourself, your body's not in, you know, decent shape. You don't have to be in great shape, but at least decent shape, then yes, life is harder.
Yes, I agree. This is episode 82, and this is the only one. This is the first episode where I get to just ask questions. I don't have to say anything. I have nothing I can teach about physical health. I'm the fat guy in the room. And so I'm just so glad to have these guys here. One of my goals is to spend 1 hour a week with an alpha. And so if I spend 2 hours with these two, I'm like way ahead of schedule because they're going to teach me some things about health. So what about you? You're motivated by seeing these things, and some of it's just pure accident maybe that you come in. But when it comes to like, this is complicated by health choices, that motivate you to stay on top of things?
Well, one of the interesting things is the unhealthy person you always think of as, the big fat person or whatever. And body size isn't necessarily always the biggest predictor of how unhealthy you might be. I mean, you could be a skinny guy weighing, 150 pounds, but, if you're smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day or, doing whatever else, I mean, everybody's metabolism works different. I mean, I've seen skinny guys, but, they love their cheeseburgers. And so they eat, 20 of those a day or whatever. And I mean, ingesting that much, cholesterol is not good on the heart, and they end up with heart attacks at age 50. So, really, everybody's body's different, and a plan for everybody to, be physically fit or, live a healthy lifestyle that, everybody doesn't fit into the same box. I wish the body was that simple. But as far as what motivates me is like, I see these guys that are like 70 years old and they're still out running races. And I'm just like, wow, I wish I could, if I can be that active at age 70, I think I'll just be loving life because I'll still be able to do something that I enjoy. I think once the enjoyment of something you love and you can do and you can't do that anymore, I think that really kind of sets things back.
So you're inspired more by the positive examples of men who have taken care of their health rather than like the lame poor guy who can't get around very well and he's sweating while he sits. You're inspired by the guy who's still doing it later in life.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you talked about type 2 diabetes, other general things like common problems that come into men's lives because of like not paying attention to their physical health. What are the things you see over and over and over that could be prevented?
Hypertension, high blood pressure, you get hyperlipidemia where your cholesterol is elevated. All those things just increase your risk of so many other ailments, things like stroke or heart attacks or things like that. And a lot of those things are really they're foodborne illnesses. We think of a heart attack or think of cardiovascular disease, and most of the time that was caused by, like he said, those 20 cheeseburgers that you're eating on a daily basis.
A couple visits to Heart Attack Grill.
Yeah. And a lot of that can be prevented. We live in a society now where people, those things are so common that the go-to prescription is just take medications. And so they just want to take medications. And, I'm sure Tana can see this. The people I deal with when I look at their medications, they're on a list of 10, 20, 30 medications.
Goodness.
And where a lot of those things can be solved, not just by taking a pill, but by changing your lifestyle or changing your eating habits.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I think everybody has a little bit different mentality of how they want to, deal with the situation. And for some people, it's like, well, if I get type 2 diabetes, I'll start taking the medication for that. Whereas another person might be like, oh, I got type 2 diabetes. What can I do to reverse that so I don't have to take a medication? And I will say, just being like, hey, I'm going to take a medication and continue on with life is much easier than saying, well, I got to exercise now. I've got to change my eating habits. I've got to do all these different things. So we've kind of created a world where, there's always these easy little fixes, but they're not necessarily the easy way out. I mean, medications only do so much, but the body's ability to actually make the adjustments and deal with diabetes is much better if you can reverse that, which type 2 diabetes actually can be reversed. So if you, make some modifications to your lifestyle, you could actually get off diabetes medication if you had type 2. Obviously that depends on the extent, but still, it's pretty amazing what the body can handle and adapt to.
I guess that's another part of what you see is not just the broken, sick people, but maybe and maybe all you're seeing, Tanner, is the person on day one. But I'm guessing you also see resilience and healing and the person who has an accident or has an episode, but because they were healthier and because maybe they were a runner, but they had something happen, and now they're able to bounce back in a faster way because they were mindful of their health. And yes, they had this thing happen, but I guess you see not only illness and, sickness, but also strength in people at times too.
Well, we get to see the body recover. Our bodies have an amazing ability. Our bodies are awesome. I mean, that's what got me into this profession that I'm in, is because I've always been just amazed with what the human body is and what it can do. And one of those things is it can recover, it can heal, it can overcome a lot of these things. And a lot of these ailments that we've been discussing, to some degree, and in certain instances, they can be reversed. And it's amazing. It's awesome.
You see that sometimes, Tanner, where someone comes in, they've had a situation happen, but because they appeared to be really on top of things with their health, they were in less serious condition.
I mean, you can, I look at this girl that I performed CPR on during the marathon, and I mean, she's someone that's just incredibly fit, an elite athlete. She's a Olympic trials qualifier, so she's extremely fast. And honestly, I think part of the reason why she had such a good outcome with what had happened is because of how well she takes care of her body. I think had that been, someone else, just, a random person out in the world that probably wasn't doing those things, they might not have had a good of end result. And it's just because, she's super fit and takes care of her body. I think that really made a difference, honestly.
So much of our health and problems that come up, it seems like some of it is going to occur because of aging and accidents will happen and so forth. But man, so much of this is within our control. And that's what I want to be focused on, is controlling the controllables. So I want to talk about fuel. That's one of the things we talk about in the energy, that an alpha, a person who's really mindful about the way he lives, he burns premium fuel. He's intentional about food and water. When it comes to nutrition, hydration, what really matters the most, would you say? And I know there's probably 10,000 different ways of looking at, there's all different diets and so forth, but at a basic level, what do you think is most important when it comes to nutrition and so forth, hydration?
As far as nutrition, you got to eat good food. We all know what good food and what bad food is. And we just have to be willing to eat good food. Is the majority of your diet fast food or pre-prepped, microwavable type of meals? And if it is, then you're probably not getting the best, like you said, the best fuel for your body. Are you taking any notice on what you're eating as far as trying to shop the produce section and get some fresh foods? And if you're doing that and you're getting some of those foods in you, then you're going to be getting some good fuel.
Okay.
One of the ways I always looked at it was, and I probably read this somewhere along the way, and it always just kind of stuck with me. But I always think of, our body as like, say, a Ferrari or, a jet or something like that. So when you think about those two things, what kind of fuel do you put into a Ferrari? You don't show up, at 7-Eleven and choose like the 85, right?
Put some diesel in it.
So you're choosing like the highest grade fuel in order for these things to perform at their maximum efficiency and do what they were designed to do, right? So the body, I think, is almost the exact same thing. If you want your body to function at its best ability, whether that's running or just getting through the day, it's going to require really good fuel to do that. So, I've messed around with a million diets probably. And I think the most important thing is the more ingredients you see in that, the less it's in its natural state. And that means it's probably been manipulated, millions of times. So it's probably not the best fuel.
Yeah. If there's 37 ingredients in something in a package that you have to do all sorts of things to versus something you can grab out of the refrigerated produce section, that's, it's refrigerated because it's alive and it's going to die soon. That's probably better for you. One of my friends used to say, if it has a logo on it, it's probably not good for you. You know, if it's got packaging and if it had, you know, if you put it in a plastic bag and they have to weigh it, that might be better for you.
Right. And I mean, it's not even stuff just in the produce section, but it's like an egg, you know, what's in an egg? An egg, right?
Yeah.
What's in a steak? A steak, hopefully
Right.
just a good steak. But
Right. You know, one of the things for me a few years ago, I changed my way of thinking as far as food, and you know, in the health field, you think a lot of macronutrients. You think of, oh, am I getting enough proteins? Am I getting enough carbohydrates? Getting enough fats? And we tend to really hyper focus on those things. With our diet today and the food that we have available, it's very easy to make sure you're getting enough proteins and enough carbohydrates, enough fats, things like that. But I started thinking more about the micronutrients. You know, am I getting enough vitamins? Am I getting enough minerals? Am I getting enough of the various chemicals that are in, you know, fresh fruits and vegetables? And if I focused more on those and started building my meals around that, you know, the macronutrients took care of themselves. But now I'm trying to think, am I getting enough of those other nutrients that are often lost or not even thought about into my diet?
So this is a little tangential maybe, but it still relates to diet. So you both are family men. You've got younger children at home. Something that I struggle with is like, you know, I have a son who only wants to eat macaroni and cheese, or they eat, you know, cereal, and it's really garbage food.
Right. Yeah.
But it's around, you know, and so I struggle sometimes because, and my wife will kind of say, well, they're not going to eat anything else. They got to eat something. And when it comes to just the choices of food in your home, so you can have, and I talk to men who are idealistic and they want to eat the healthy stuff and they want to eat the pure foods and look at their nutrients and everything. But in a family life and in a busy world and we've got to feed kids. And so now we've got, you know, goldfish and graham crackers all over the place or whatever. How do you guys handle that type of thing where maybe in order to, does that make sense what I'm asking?
no,
Well,
I-
absolutely. You know, I can't say my kids don't eat goldfish and graham crackers. I mean, we're dads, we have kids. Yes. I mean, those things are going to happen.
Sure.
And I don't think it's bad. You know, I can't say that everything I eat is highly nutritious or anything like that.
Right.
I mean, that'd be insane. But like you said, it's about those food choices. And so what foods are you bringing in the house? Whatever foods you're getting at the grocery store and the foods that are in your refrigerator and pantries, those are the foods that your kids are going to end up eating. And so are you constantly buying, you know, chips and Oreos and whatnot and bringing those home? And if you are, your kids, you could make the most delicious, nutritious meal, but those Oreos are sitting in there in that cupboard. And that's what they're going to want to gravitate to. And so I wish I had a great answer as far as how do you get your kids to eat healthy. I think that's a whole different topic.
That's a whole nother show. We'll have you back for that one.
well, I mean, I got a year and a half kid and a 5-year-old, and I mean, trust me, I like eating food just as much as anyone. I'm gonna go eat a whole pizza if I'm really gonna eat some pizza. But one thing, and I don't think I have this perfected by any means, but definitely, like Gavin was saying, is what you buy and bring home, you know, is going to influence what they see as being available to them to eat. I mean, if they're hungry, they're going to eat something. It's a question of what do they see and what are they going to grab first? And, you know, little kids, why deprive them of things that, you know, other little kids have? I think, you know, if some sugary cereal, great. But it's a question of, you know, are you going to let them have 2-3 bowls of sugary cereal? So one of the things we try to do with my kids is it's like, hey, if you want to have some cereal, here's your 1 bowl of cereal. If you're still hungry, you have the option of having, say, a banana or an apple, something that's more nutritious to kind of, well, hopefully balance that. But at least that way they're still, you know, able to get what they want, and they're also getting some kind of nutrition on top of that.
When it comes to what you personally prefer, when you're trying to be mindful and you're trying to eat well, what things do you want a lot of, and what do you want to try to avoid personally?
Well, I think, you know, this is one of the biggest things that I think there's so many things out there that it's like, you know, you see all these diets. It's like, okay, you need to eat more fat. Let's go with the keto diet. You need to eat more protein. You know, you got all these different diets that are promoting one specific thing. And it's like, if you're an athlete, you're going to need a lot more protein. If you're doing like endurance type of things, you're going to need more carbohydrates on top of that. So I would say the regular day-to-day person, even then it's even still complicated because everybody's body is different. Everybody metabolizes things differently. I mean, there's just because I'm interested in this kind of stuff, there's this website company called GenoPalette, and you give them a DNA test and they'll tell you, what types of things you metabolize better than others based on your genes. And how much of that is 100% backed by, the data and research they've done. I don't know 100%, but there is some genetic linkages to a lot of these different things. And my body structure requires more protein than probably the average structure. That's just the genetic buildup of muscle and everything like that. So, I think the best diet you can do is you have to choose what you like to eat. If you deprive yourself of what you like, then you're going to be miserable and you're not going to stick with that diet for very long. So I always think of people like, I have a lot of friends that are into the weightlifting and bodybuilding, and they do competitions and they do their cheat meals and things like that. And, if that's what gets you through living a whole week of just really good, strong diet, and then, you have your cheat meal once a week or whatever. I mean, that's one way to do it. Or my thing is I try to figure out how I can just balance things in general. So I try to eat really healthy, or at least the best I can, because trust me, I like other foods that are not so healthy. But instead of having like 5 cookies at night, I'll be like, hey, I can have my one thing that I love, which is 1 cookie, and I'll call it a day with 1 cookie. But I don't do a cheat meal, so I think it's better to be able to have that self-control to say I can have 1 cookie and call it a day.
That's interesting.
For me, that balanced approach has been successful. I've never been very strict on I have to eat only this and not this, because that tends to lead you up to fail. Because we all, why deprive yourself of foods that are available, or you're meeting with your family and there's cookies or cake or something involved, and you don't want to have that guilt or anything like that of I can't eat this or I'm going to destroy my diet. And so, yeah, I mean, I'll enjoy those things, but like I said, the majority of my diet that I know on what I'm eating, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, things like that, I know are typically good foods or healthy foods, things that I'm trying to be intentional about eating or preparing to eat. And so I'm not trying to, preparing, I guess that's where I'm going with that, is being intentional about what I'm eating. I'm not trying to guess what I'm going to be eating, or you go out for the day and you think, I don't know where I'm going to go. And so you end up getting fast food or things like that. And then you end up doing that every single day. I mean, those calories and that type of food adds up. And so I think trying to figure out of planning out ahead, or at least having an idea of what you're going to be eating on a day-to-day basis, and trying to make the majority of that food good, nutritious food, then you can balance out with the other stuff.
So I'm still quite an unhealthy person, but at one time I weighed 426 pounds. I had actually had weight loss surgery, and at my best, I think I'd lost about 165 pounds. But in some of the preparation for that, you had to go to nutrition classes and different things. And one of the things they mentioned was you got to stop eating for entertainment. And when I think about these elite athletes here, you're talking about, you're considering what this is doing to the machine, not just this will be fun. This will be fun. And I know you do that some. Like, I think, Tanner, if it's okay if I say your Instagram handle is Donuts and Run, and that seems like a part of your sort of, identity. Like, I'm going to run and then I'm going to have a donut. And that's a cool way to kind of balance some of that out. But if you're daily eating whatever sounds good or whatever it's entertainment, does that make sense? Don't eat for entertainment. I think that's part of our culture. Think about everything is connected to food and the just how fun can we make food, and that's where we maybe get into problems sometimes.
Right, and are you eating because you're bored, or eating because you're in an emotional state or something like that? And you're right. I mean, when you're associating foods with those, those type of mental states, then yeah, it can become dangerous. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, See, I think, and you know, it's such a tricky thing because people give food just such a negative thing, you know, especially lately. It seems like food is just, you know, so many negative things about food. And then people have all of these, you know, bad relationships with food. I think food should be fun to some extent. It's just a matter of you being able to figure out how to control that. And that's just with anything. And so, I mean, we go to, you know, I love going out to dinner and checking out a new restaurant. And when I go, I'm like, you know, if I'm going to go to the restaurant, I'm going to try everything on the menu and see what this restaurant's all about. And now, you know, you got Instagram and all these other things to advertise all these places and see what they have to offer. So I think in our culture too, you know, we're a type of people that we like to go out and meet up with friends and, you know, go out to eat and share the experience with people and stuff. So I think that food needs to be fun. It's just a matter of you figuring out how to control that. So
yeah, we don't
maybe once every day type of fun isn't a good thing, but you know, maybe a once a month say, hey, you know, I'm going to go check out this new restaurant this month and go meet up with some friends and go have fun.
I'm guessing you're not seeing people in the emergency room who they eat healthy all month and they went out one time and had some pizza and now they're all jacked up. This is the chronic, you know, the person who's just chronically choosing the worst kinds of things. So yeah, we don't have to demonize the donut. We don't have to demonize food, but to handle it with some mindfulness and some care and some intention about it. That seems to be what makes the difference. What about water? So I will admit something. I am 35 days now sober from Monster Energy. I was drinking 5 of those a day. That I think I calculated about 700 milligrams of caffeine a day. And I'm lucky to be sitting here because I did that for years and years and years. I even remember I was out on a camping trip with Tanner's brother here and some of the kids in our neighborhood for a scouting event. And I had to have an ice chest with some Monster Energy or I didn't think I could function. And anyway, so I just quit that. I've been drinking mostly water. I have a little sparkling water here with me now, but talk about the value of hydration and what that does if you are not properly hydrated.
Yeah, I mean, with water, it comes out, you just have to drink water. I mean, people, I get a lot of excuses of people, I don't like the taste, you know, the water's stale, you know, a lot of reasons why they don't want to drink water. And the interesting thing about that is, you know, water is one of the characteristics of our biological makeup. I mean, you have NASA that has spent billions of dollars of creating and developing equipment to go scour the cosmos to find planets with water, right?
Right.
And here we have water right here. Like, we need water. We need to drink it. And people, for some reason, have created this aversion to drinking water. They have to, oh, well, there's water in soda, or there's water in energy drinks, and there's water in coffee. And
there's water in beer? What do you mean?
There's water in beer, right? So I'm going to drink that. And, you know, in that instance, like, it just boggles my mind. Like, your body needs water. Your body needs to be hydrated. It's one of the most overlooked, I think, functions to our everyday health that people don't think about. Like, we just need to drink water. So my advice on that is just drink some damn water.
Right. Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, I mean, I'm not the best at drinking water. I think, honestly, I drink water because my body recognizes the need for it, especially with, you know, running and cycling and things. But at the end of the day, you can drink too much water, and that could end you up in the ER too, because too much water, unfortunately, dilutes all of the other, you know, nutrients and everything in our body. So too much water is a bad thing. So when you're saying too much water, I mean, you have to have a lot of water. I mean, so the funny thing is, believe it or not, there is actually a lot of people that do endurance events, whether that's a marathon or a cycling event or an Ironman or something like that, and they actually overhydrate and they end up in a medical tent because they drank too much, and their potassium is super low because they drank too much water, basically.
I can see that, but let's bring it down to the audience here.
Yeah. So how much are we talking? Like,
and that's kind of the point that I'm getting to. I mean, you hear about people saying, I need to drink 2 gallons of water because Tom Brady does that, or he has some crazy, formula for water. Right. And so the way that I think is about water is, and this is one of the things I've read about it within running and stuff, is you should drink to thirst. If you're thirsty, drink some water. If you're thirsty, you don't need to stress out about drinking more water just to drink it.
Oh, that's a good thought. When I moved to Vegas, I think this happened here in Vegas on the radio station here. And I don't know if it was a syndicated program or whatever, but the Wii was pretty new, the Wii, the game console. And they had this contest. It was called Wii for a Wii. And they sat there in the audience, or they sat there in the studio, and they're drinking water. And whoever could drink the most water was going to win the Wii. So Wii for a Wii, like how much can you pee or whatever. Anyway, the lady died because she drank so much water. And that's one of the things that tuned me into, like, I guess you could overdo that. But recently something I read was about cholesterol and the buildup in your arteries. So my dad had a 7 bypass heart surgery. So they bypassed 7 vessels or veins. I don't know which one it is, but in his heart, because some of them were like 99% closed, 95%, closed. And I read about that water. One of the reasons that happens is because you don't have enough water, and it's just kind of build up, and you can flush some of that with proper water. And I mean, my dad was a fan of buttermilk. And so I'm thinking, I'm thinking of paint, paint thinner, it's going to thin the stuff. And so maybe water like thins your blood a little bit. So it's not just tracking all this mud, through your blood system. I don't know. I found the benefits from that recently. One of the things that made me look at that was, and some of my clients listen to this show, but I would have appointments with people all day, and I would have to cancel like 3 or 4 in a row because I couldn't stay awake. So I'm drinking, by that time in the morning, I would have had 2 or 3 Monster Energy drinks, and I couldn't stay awake. And I would have to cancel appointments, sleep right here on this couch, take a nap, and I shouldn't have had to do that. But once I started drinking water, I had like no more fatigue like that. It helped me so much. So water, obviously very important. Let's talk about activity, physical activity. So what's the role of movement in maintaining optimal health? Obviously, these guys are sold on it themselves, but how important is intentional movement? Not just you work a physical job, you're on your feet all day, but like literally going out there to exercise.
I think the most important thing when it comes to exercise is, if you're going to make it a daily routine and make it a pattern in a lifestyle, is you have to find out what you like to do.
Okay.
If lifting weights is your thing that you love doing, then you'll probably go do it 3-4 times a week. If you like to run, you're going to go do it 3-4 times a week. If it's something that you don't enjoy doing, I mean, you're just setting yourself up to stop doing it after you just get burned out on it.
Now you hate yourself because you're never doing it, but you have this idealized thing that you think would be great, but you're saying do what you like to do.
So if you like to swim, go swim. If you like to ride a bike, ride a bike. I mean, everybody's body is different, and, I wish I could say everybody could be a runner, but it's not always the easiest thing to do, especially on the body. So, and even somebody like me, I mean, I run a race and my body takes time to recover from that because it does take a beating. But finding what you like, I think, is the most important thing to setting up yourself for a good, solid routine of doing it.
Wow, that's good advice.
And when you say how important is movement, I'd say it's vital. I mean, our body is designed to move. Our joints need movement. Our muscles need movement. Our connective tissues, everything in there. Our heart needs to be elevated, needs to be taxed to have a good cardiovascular system, and all those things. So our bodies need to move. And what I see on a day-to-day basis are people that have neglected movement. They don't want to because for whatever reason it's hard, or they hurt, they're in pain. When you neglect that movement, the body, it's that old use it or lose it. If you don't move your body, you're going to lose it. I mean, we all think about, I used to be able to do this. I used to be able to go out and play basketball, or I used to be able to, these things. But if you stop doing it for a long time, all of a sudden you can't do it anymore. I went out, I was playing softball this a couple of years ago, and I hadn't played softball in a long time, and I thought, oh yeah, I can just go out there and it'll be just like the good old days, right? And it wasn't. It was hard. My reaction time was off. My ability to judge the fly balls and things like that was off, and it's because I hadn't done that for a long time. And so our bodies they need that movement on a consistent basis Otherwise, it's going to forget, and it's not going to be as optimal in a way of being able to do that movement again. And sometimes that movement becomes just our basic movement of things of, getting up and being able to do our daily chores or our daily activities or whatever it may be. And so your body needs movement. That's what you got to understand. I guess that's my big message is your body needs to be moved in one way or another. So like what Tanner was saying, find a way that you enjoy moving your body. There's a lot of different avenues you can go about doing that. But you need to incorporate that into a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. So I have had a couple of knee surgeries, and on one of them, I had an ACL reconstruction, and I didn't follow up on the physical therapy. And I still have, if you look at my quad on this leg, it's way smaller. Like this has been so long ago. And because of, I don't know, maybe 3 months of less activity on that leg. And I don't remember how long I was, on crutches, not moving, but I didn't continue the movement. And that the atrophy, I think is the word. It's just, it's still there. You could look at me standing up and you could see that my left leg is just way smaller because I didn't continue the movement. I'm also wondering too, with like the elderly, when it comes to their bone density and stuff like that, is that affected by movement? I mean, I guess there's a lot of factors, but a little old lady or a little old man who is not moving very much, does that make them even more vulnerable to bone breaks and stuff like that?
Absolutely. You get that, osteoporotic individual, and a lot of times that bone density has decreased because there's a lack of load. Our body responds to load. And so
I like that. So, well, then it's going to respond really well to mine. I got a big wide load here.
But I mean, if we give it a controlled load, our body can accommodate to that, and it can be able, so our bones are the same way, by going out and running and lifting weights or do whatever it is, you're putting weight bearing stress onto your bones. They're going to become more dense. And so if you're not doing that for a period of time, our bodies are going to react to that as well. It's going to become less dense. And so you're going to be a lot more susceptible to breaks and things like that.
Oh my gosh. That's great. Our body responds to load. That's such a cool idea. Like we have to put ourselves under some pressure we have to.
Absolutely.
This blows my mind right there. Tanner, thoughts on the healing power or the preventative nature of like how movement prevents us from having problems?
Well, it's a lot about what Gavin has already talked about as far as preventing. So if you're lifting weights or doing anything that's, weight bearing or resistance training or whatever it is, you're preventing the breakdown of muscle, right? So as you've, as we age, unfortunately, our body deteriorates, and that's one thing that we can't control, but we can control how much exercise we do or what we do to kind of preserve that or decrease the rate as far as things breaking down. So, exercise is huge as far as preventing that, and it regulates a lot more things than just, our muscles or our bones. There's a lot of other hormones and different things related with when we exercise. And so exercise is something I think we need to do. And the definition of exercise is all how we want to put it. I mean, if walking around the block is exercise, then you can label it that. I don't really consider riding my bike as exercise. I do it because I like doing it, and it's actually more of a hobby and fun, but benefit is it's exercise too. So
I hear a lot of people say, and I feel this way too, that it's easier for me to exercise if it's a game, if I'm running around with my kids, or I'm playing even just a little like softball game. I guess there's not a ton of movement in softball or whatever, but versus like soccer or basketball, but to compete with other people and if this is playing a game, a field game or an indoor court game, or even what are the old guys playing now? The pickleball, or just whatever to kind of get you moving a little bit. That seemed like what you said. If you enjoy it, you're going to be much more likely to do that. I'm curious about what you guys do for your own physical routines. I mean, how many miles you're running? How much do you lift? What is your typical when you're doing well and you're feeling good? What are you doing in a week or a day or a month?
So a lot of that depends on if I have an event on the calendar that I'm training for.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually sign up for events because that motivates me to continue on training. When you know, there's definitely a time after an event that you need to recover, let the body heal, that kind of thing from the training that you put it through. And that's part of the strengthening process is recovery and you know, rest. So it varies a lot depending on whether it's a marathon I'm training for, 5K, half marathon, cycling race. It just kind of varies. But I think, you know, even when it's that time after the race, I still have that need for consistency and just being like, I need to go out and do something today. Cause you know, they call it marathon blues in the running world. And that's this period of time where people take time off of running because they just ran a race and they're just like, man, what am I going to do with my life now? I was running 4, 5, 6 times a week, and now here I am, you know, in this recovery phase of not running at all. And so they have this void that they're like, I don't know what to do with it. So when you develop that consistency, you know, I think that's the most important thing, whether it's 1 mile, you know, that you go for a walk or a jog or whatever, but doing that regularly is the most important thing. I don't think it's funny because I know people that they're not that consistent but they have this weekly mileage goal that they think they have to get to be ready for a race. And so here they are come, you know, Saturday, and they're like, oh man, I didn't run all week long and I still got to get 20 miles this week. So then they end up running 2 10-mile runs, and that's not the best way to do it. I mean, you think of 2 10-mile runs and that's a pretty long run,
Mm-hmm.
but 20 miles in a week, if you just broke that up into, you know, a couple 4-mile runs here and there, that's much easier than a 10.
Mm-hmm. So are you running almost every day? Do you do this 5 days a week, or what's your, on a typical, again, average week? Or
I would say I'm active probably on average 5 days a week.
okay. And do you do treadmill, running around the neighborhood, go in the mountains? You want to be on hills? What's your preferred, or do you mix it up?
I think the body likes change in some ways. And the body adapts to whatever stimulus you give it. So if running on the same exact road day in, day out, your body's going to adjust to that and it's going to become easier and easier. And it can also cause problems at the same time. So mixing things up. So I do a variety of things. I ride my bike a couple days a week. I run on a treadmill, you know, a day a week or something like that. And then run a variety of different routes on the street as well when I'm running.
How about you, Gavin?
I am a man of routine.
Okay.
I get into routines and I am able to stick to routines. So yes, I wake up at 4:20 every morning, leave the house. I'm walking into the gym at 5 o'clock. I usually do a 15-minute warm up, a run or so on the treadmill, and then about 30 minutes of lifting where I'll do weights. And then I'm leaving the gym at 6 o'clock and heading out to work. And so I typically do that 4 days a week. And then I'll do 1 day of treadmill running, where I try to get a 30-minute run in at least, so a little bit over 3 miles. And then, the weekends are my variable. Right now, Tanner and I are getting up early on Sunday mornings and running because we got the rock and roll race coming up here in a little bit.
Is that December? That's this month? Or when is that one?
That one's in February.
Oh,
yeah.
That's not a...
So
they used to do a Vegas one, the rock and roll in Vegas in December.
It used to be in November every year, but
okay.
They've
Is this one here in town you're doing the rock and roll?
Yeah,
oh, nice.
Yeah, that's the Vegas one.
I've been to a couple of those events. Those are pretty cool.
Yeah.
Rock and roll stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Tanner's, he's been doing them for I think a number of years. This will be my first year doing it.
Yeah, it's and that's the thing is, some of these events they give you a goal to set your mind to and to train for, which makes it a little bit easier to be motivated to get out the door and get moving. But then the events also the reward as far as this is the rock and roll event that they put together. They have like rock bands set up throughout the course. So like you turn a corner and then there's a stage with some band playing some music and stuff. And if you want, you can stop and watch for a minute and keep on with the course or whatever you want to do. And then they have like a big, huge concert before the race starts and stuff. So, I mean, it's a cool environment and experience. And if you can recruit people to do it with you, then you got someone to train with, and it's a little bit more exciting too.
That's so awesome. So I went to a couple of those with my ex-wife. She's, I wouldn't say a runner, but she did that just to challenge herself. She did the Nashville rock and roll and then the Vegas one. And I have to tell you, if you've ever been there, maybe you just go to the race, even if you don't know anyone or whatever, just if you go to that environment, you guys, if you want to kind of look into this whole idea of doing this thing, just go down there, just watch the people. And it's the most positive environment I've ever seen in my entire life. And I've been around some nice people, but man, that whole world of like fitness and the competitions, everybody's just cheering everybody on. The people in the race, they're just digging in, they're just pushing through, trying to get a record. It's amazing. The atmosphere is just, it's electric with positivity. And just hearing you talk about it, I got a little bit of goosebumps because I have some memories of that as a observer. What do you call that? Spectator.
The spectators can enjoy it.
Yeah, you get a buzz from just watching that stuff. But and then you've done some like Tough Mudders or some of those kind of. I'm interested in those Spartan.
And you know, when what you were saying about that vibe, I remember that first Tough Mudder. That was the one we talked about earlier, where I had the extreme cramping and all that, so it was hard. But I remember finishing that race and thinking, man, like as I thought about everything we just did, the thing that stood out in my mind was it was like this utopian society where everyone was helping me, like everyone was helping me get over walls or cheering me on or things like that. And it was like you go to those things and there's such a positive vibe. And I think that's what it draws people out, because you're doing something hard. You're doing something taxing. Like I shouldn't be enjoying this, right? I'm putting myself through hell, trying to run this marathon. But you're enjoying every minute of it because of the people that are out there and because of the vibe. When I did the St. George Marathon a couple years ago, that one you're coming down off from the canyon, and once you get to the last few miles, that's when you run into the town of St. George, and all of a sudden the streets are lined with people, kids and families out there with signs, rooting you on and cheering you on. And I remember I got to a point in the race where I thought I was going to throw up. Like I started feeling really ill. And then as I saw all those kids there, rooting me on, I thought, I can't throw up now. I can't do that in front of them. And it just gave me that motivation. I was like, okay, I just got to keep going and I got to finish this thing out. Dude.
Yeah. That's just, he's right about the crowd is just cheering for you. I mean, they're still an hour away from the finish line, but they're cheering on you because they're connecting with you. It's that I think that might be a goal for myself, is just to go to one of those events in the next couple months. Maybe I'll go to the one in February if you guys are doing it. Maybe I'll go and get my kids out there. It's just fun. There's always good food and, like you said, entertainment. I want to talk about the beginner, couch potato guy like me. So I have, earlier in my life, so I played college football, so I spent a lot of time training and doing weights and all kinds of exercise, and I was in much better shape, solid at 200 pounds. I felt good. But I've gotten so far away from that. For the guy who's not done much, middle school PE was the last time he really exercised. Where should he begin? What can he do? Maybe one of the ideas, Tanner, is find something that you enjoy. But if a guy just wants to get moving and start, what would you recommend for, a 50-year-old guy, he just quit smoking and he's trying to preserve his health and he wants to incorporate some activity, some exercise. What would you say to that guy?
I mean, I think about all these like success stories of other people that even motivate and inspire me. And for a lot of these people, it's like, hey, you know what? I made the goal today that instead of, if you go get your, morning coffee or whatever it is, or you go, you have like some kind of thing you like to do once a day. They're like, you know what? Instead of driving my car, I'm going to walk to that point and I'm going to get that. And then I'm going to walk home.
To Starbucks. There you go.
Right. So you walk to Starbucks, you get your drink, and then you walk back. So, I mean, it's just making that small adjustment to your life and finding a way that's motivating you to get out and move a little bit. So if you're motivated that you got to have your Starbucks in the morning, you're like, hey, I definitely got to get my Starbucks. How am I going to get there? I'm going to walk today. So you walk,
when you say small things, or am I going to drive around the parking lot for 20 minutes trying to find the closest spot? Or am I just going to finally take one of those back ones and walk an extra 30 feet?
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, yeah, that's what, you know, you hear about the people that are like, you know what, I decided I'm no longer going to take the elevator, you know, at work. I'm going to take the stairs from now on, or exactly park in the back of the parking lot and walk to the front of the store and get a few extra steps in. So I think those are all places to start, along with finding something you like to do. And, you know, your past medical history obviously will limit you to some extent to, you know, surgeries and things that you've had, or, you know, some things are going to be easier than others to get involved with. But everything when it comes to exercising, whether that's lifting weights, running, cycling, whatever it is, you have to start out in baby steps. And a lot of people get, you know, so amped and so jazzed about, oh, I'm going to, you know, go out and run 8 miles today. And they haven't ran, you know, in years. They do that 8 miles and they're like, yeah, I can't walk for days now. And it's like, well, you're not going to go run tomorrow because you're not going to be feeling it anymore. So
overdo it early on kind of thing.
Yeah. And you get burned out and things like that. So you really have to, I mean, life is a marathon. It's a long race. You have to start out nice and slow, and you're just building up slowly up to a point to where you want to be, or, you know, whatever you're training for.
Yeah, I would say, you know, what do you need to start with? I'd say first you need to start with the goal. You know, what do you really want, and figure that out. What are you wanting? Are you wanting to, you know, just improve how you feel? Are you wanting to improve how you look? Are you wanting to improve your energy? You know, if you have that goal in mind, that's going to make you a lot more likely to be successful with it. And then, you know, don't be scared to go out there and find somebody to help you. If you need to hire a trainer, if you need to find a running buddy, there's a lot of weight and accountability. And if we have somebody that we're accountable to, that we're reporting in with to make sure that we're doing those things, we're going to be a lot more successful. And if you're not, also the benefit of let's say hiring a trainer is, if you're not sure what to do, you can hurt yourself. There are injuries you can acquire, and then that's just going to set you back and discourage you. And so if you get somebody that that's qualified to be able to help you start, then they're going to be able to point you in that right direction and prevent you from going out and running that 8 miles right off the bat, and then never wanting to run again in your life because you had such a miserable experience.
That's great. Yeah, I like that. So decide what you want to do. Find ways to increase your movement in your natural everyday life. Take the further parking spot. Maybe don't take the elevator. Take the stairs. Walk to get your drink, or find ways to increase your steps. So when COVID started, I had a gym membership at the time. I canceled it because I wasn't going because you had to wear a mask in the gym. And I said, all right, I don't want to load up my garage with weights and equipment. It's hard for me to, you know, pay for a fee to go to a place and I have to wear a mask to work out. I didn't want to do that. Maybe those are just excuses, but I found this app that it was just like a bunch of body weight exercises, you know, air squats. Dude, if you haven't done anything, do 20 air squats and see how you feel tomorrow, because you will be shocked that it's going to be hard to sit down and take a dump because you're so sore if you haven't had a lot of physical activity, or, you know, push-ups and sit-ups and those kinds of things. Really, there's no excuse not to have more physical activity. If you say, I can't afford a gym, I don't want to go to the gym, it's too early, I've got too much going on in my life. I just think if you can be honest about the fact that you don't want to do that, then you feel less guilty. But you can do it in your living room. Sometimes I don't get home from work until 11 o'clock at night. Everyone's asleep. I don't want to be loud and doing anything. And I can sit in my living room and do this little routine where I'm doing, you know, a combination of push-ups and all these different things that it leads you through. There's an app. There's a low cost, maybe trainer. There's a program. There's a class at your gym. At the rec center, they have stuff. Or you can walk around your neighborhood and every now and then pick it up and double time it with some jogging. I just think if you're trying to be healthier, you've got to decide what you want to do and start moving in some way or another. But I agree, don't overdo it. I don't think you should overdo it. You're going to get hurt. I've been that guy too, where it's like, whoa, I can't even move, or I've ripped my shoulder. I was bench pressing too much and I can't. And now you're not going to be in the gym because now you're at physical therapy. So what other things lead to failure? Men start stuff. They start a routine. They try to begin. What about psychologically? You know, what about our mood or our mental weakness?
I think the biggest, and it's like you were saying, there's a million excuses you can come up with why you can't do something. And the accountability, I think, is one of the most important things. So last night I went to, we've been planning these runs, a couple guys that we know every Sunday morning. And so I've been sending out a text and saying, hey, all right, we're meeting up at, 6 a.m. or 6:30 or whatever on Sunday morning to go for a run. And then I've just kind of taken it upon myself to kind of send out this routine message to see who's all going to show up, or, to kind of give people a reminder that, hey, we are going to meet up and go on this run. And last night I went to the Foo Fighters concert.
All right.
And so, the Foo Fighters play a strong concert, and that went, and I didn't even get home till like 12:30. And, but prior to that, I didn't realize they were going to be playing till, 12:30 at night. And so I'd already made arrangements to meet up with Gavin and a couple other people at 6 a.m. And I was like, I got home, I was like, well, I said I was going to be there, so I'm going to be there. And, I get there and nobody's out there. And I'm like, wow. All right.
Gavin, you dogged him this morning?
No.
Wait, give him
okay, let's finish.
So a couple of people, they weren't there at the time we had planned on. And I was like, all right, I'm going to give Gavin, because he said he's going to be here, I'm going to give him till 6:05. Sure enough, 6:05, Gavin's right there. He's like, man, I was here at 5:58, but I had to go to the bathroom. So I went back home and, use the bathroom.
He wasn't there at 5:58. So I was like, well, I can go back in and go to the bathroom real quick.
But long story short, I don't think, had I not had that accountability to people that I had made arrangements with, I probably would have been like, you know what, much easier just sleep in, not go for a run. But because I had made those arrangements and somebody I had to be accountable to, I was out there at 6 a.m., getting a run in. And one thing that over the years that I've come to realize is the only runs or cycling rides that I regret are usually the ones that I don't go on. Like I never look back and like, man, I should have really slept in today and not gone on that run or anything. It's like usually the ones that I sleep in, I'm like later on in the day, I'm like, I should have just got up and gone for that run. Like that's a weak excuse. So anyways. Oh,
that's awesome.
Yeah. I think, why do we fail? There's a lot of reasons of why we fail, but when it comes to activity, boredom and again, just forgetting why you're doing it. For me, I like to be healthy because I like to know that I can go out and play with my kids at any time. I don't have to, I know I'm not going to be overtaxed. I can get down on the floor and play around with them and know I can get right back up. Yeah. I can go out and throw a ball or go running. So those type of things, they motivate me to stay active and to be routinely active. And so again, just going back and knowing what your goal is, if you're feeling discouraged or whatever the case may be, or if distractions come about, or if you fall out of routine for a bit, just go back to, why am I doing this? And that's to have a better life and to be a stronger influence, not only in my life, but in the life of those around me.
So what drives you to compete? I mean, you've talked about some of these, your hobbies and that you do these things, but why do a race? Why pay money and travel to Boston? Why? I mean, that was an obvious, high level thing, but what makes you want to run the local marathons and stuff like that? Why not just jog in your neighborhood, little running group? And why do you want to join a competition?
It's kind of like I was saying before, paying the money and committing yourself to something, it raises the accountability level. You can only put off training for a race for so long before you realize, well, I'm probably not going to run this race unless I actually start training. So at some point, that's going to click in your mind. You're going to start moving, or you're just going to say, well, there goes $100 or however much it costs to enter that race. But for one of the things that kind of really sucked me into these events, and Gavin's ran the St. George Marathon, but it's amazing to be a part of something that's much bigger than yourself. There's a lot of, I played high school sports, and, moving on from high school, I've always been, into sports and competing and things like that. And you can't ever go back and play high school baseball or football or basketball or anything like that. So for someone that's been there and experienced that, and I think that's why a lot of people don't continue on, doing a lot of active things is because they're like, the experience is never going to be the same as that high school sport or whatever. But I think in doing some of these events like running, you bring some of that back, and it's being in the atmosphere of others that are competing, and you get that adrenaline kind of rush, and it's like you're at the starting line, and it's like, oh man, this is so amazing, I'm gonna run so fast. And then you got other people that are competitive, and you're like, I can run faster than them, but and you don't know that until the finish line. But I think that's one of the big motivating factors, and it's you get to the point of the Boston Marathon, which is even a bigger scale, because in at the Boston Marathon, that's one of the races where the professional runners that are actually sponsored and getting paid, they're running the exact same course as you on that same day, and they're starting a little bit before you. So it's like going and playing baseball, and you're in the LA Dodger Stadium.
Right.
So I mean, it's a pretty amazing experience. And that was like a long-term goal for me. Was I ran one marathon. I was like, you know what? I think someday I could get to Boston. And I thought it was going to be an easy thing to get to, several years and several marathons down the road, I finally qualified. But it was amazing to be able to do that. And it's cool to be a part of something much bigger, and it's motivating and drives me to want to go back and do it again. And it's just fun.
Love it. How about you, Gavin? Why do you compete and sign up for things? Is it similar to what Tanner said, or you have other?
I mean, Tanner, he's running in a lot more competitive level than I am. I'm more of your hobby athlete. I've always been active. Running is something that's new to me. I've never been an endurance athlete at all. That was more my wife. She was always doing that. Me, I was, I'd go into the gym and I'd lift, and I do those things because I like to feel good, and I like to know I could take my shirt off at the beach and
Right.
look halfway decent, right? And then she was the one. She's like, hey, I signed you up for the St. George Marathon. This was like in April, right? And she was like, well, when's that? She's like, it's in October. I signed you up. We paid the money. Okay. And then I started thinking about it. I said, you know what? This is going to be different. Something completely different for me. I'm not used to that type of athleticism or that type of training. And so for me, it was the challenge. Okay, can I challenge myself to do this? Can I commit to doing this? And Tanner actually gave me a training program to follow. And by the end of that training program, I was able to say I was 100% compliant to that training program. I ran every mile that he said to run. That was on that thing. And there was an element of feeling good, right? So when I went to do that race, and then you talk about, we already talked about the excitement of being at those races, and that was my first one. And that was all true. I mean, it was exciting being there, and to know that I had put forth the effort. I had done everything that I could do, everything that I was instructed to do, everything that I felt I could do. And I was there to run my best race. And that feels good. It just feels good to challenge yourself in such a way and to be able to achieve those goals.
That is super inspiring, man. I love that. One of the things we talk about in this whole program, our whole larger, broader message is that men need men. You need a tribe of people. You need someone who's further along in whatever you're doing in your professional training. You had to learn, you had to shadow the other folks, and you had to do your rotations and whatever you call that. And here you're saying, I've leaned on someone who's been there before and done this, and I'm using the power of a social pressure or the accountability that comes from other people. I'm leading out in a little running group. I'm challenging myself along with these other people in these races. It's just beautiful what you guys are doing, man. I'm just super inspired by what I'm hearing from you. I want to talk about like medical treatments and supplements and stuff like that. So men are kind of, it's the joking thing about men never go to the doctor and so forth. Why is it that men are just so stereotypically not interested in medical care, going to the doctor, looking at things or taking their medicine or being compliant with something that they may need? 40-year-old guy, maybe he's got high cholesterol or high blood pressure and he's not really good, or he's type 2. What in the world is the reason for that, would you say?
I think there's a pride aspect involved with that. Men like to take care of themselves and take care of their family and everyone else. And so it's like, maybe it's a humbling experience to say, well, I've got to go get help from somebody else. Mm. And, I'm a medical provider, and even for me to keep up with seeing the doctor, I mean, my wife and I have made it a goal that we're going to see the doctor once a year. I mean, that's what our insurance covers. So we're like, we should at least do that at the minimum, right?
Right.
So we do that once a year, and we get our routine blood tests. And I have hypothyroidism, so I have to take levothyroxine. It was just one of those weird things that, my doctor decided to run some blood tests, and he was like, hey, guess what? Your thyroid's a little bit low. So we kind of watched it for a while, and it was continued being, low. And so I was like, well, nothing you can do about that but take a pill, unfortunately. There's not like a reverse on hypothyroidism. I wish there was, but taking one pill a day it's a lot of work. It really is. Like, for someone that doesn't take pills, like one pill a day is a lot of work, and it's easy to forget taking that one-time dose. So I think about a lot of these patients that I have, and they're like on multiple medications. I'm like, I just can't imagine the stress of having to remember all of these medications. And so going back to the importance of a doctor, I mean, I think it is very important to go see a doctor, because it's kind of like taking your car in for an oil change. Like, we all need to see somebody that can kind of look at us from a different angle and say, you know what, you need, a couple little tweaks here and there. And if you can keep up with those, then, you're going to keep yourself out of the auto body shop or, getting some major overhaul down the road. So I think a pride thing is the big part. I mean, and there's probably a fear aspect too. It's like, I don't want to go to the doctor and find out that I actually do have problems that I got to deal with too. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that keep people out, but honestly, if you think about it as more of a maintenance kind of thing, like, we all need maintenance. Our car needs maintenance, our bike needs maintenance, whatever it is, everything needs maintenance. And at least a once a year type of thing, I think is pretty reasonable to do, and getting some routine blood tests. Cause honestly, if you catch a lot of the medical conditions early on in life and you get started in the right direction, you can prevent much worse problems down the road.
So interesting when you talk about the thyroid thing. My wife has had some challenges over the last few years, and most of that looked like psych shit. Okay, so there was mood and anger and these different things, and she went to doctors, went to therapy, took some like antidepressants and different things, and none of that was working. She gets blood work. She got zero thyroid function. She starts on the levothyroxine or whatever that is, and changed her world completely healthy, normal person. We have a happy life again.
It's crazy, right? One medication.
But she would have never known that was even a thing. I mean, who even know? We did not know what even the thyroid it does. And so when she got some of that squared away, it's amazing. And you would have never known without blood work. And that's why all these different approaches, well, let's try this. Oh, this is a spiritual problem. Or, oh, this is because we're not eating well. Let me change what I'm eating. And all these different approaches, none of it worked till we got the chemistry right. And that's a great example there about the blood work. It's important. So any thoughts on that about men and seeing doctors and going to the physical therapy or the whatever treatment they need and they refuse to do it?
Yeah, well, I think it's just priority, right? I mean, we got to at some point prioritize ourselves. We're always trying to take care of other things, taking care of our families, our jobs, things like that. And we neglect ourselves so much. And so being open and understanding and willing to take care of yourself on a health basis, making sure that you're doing the things you need to do, going to the places you need to go, see the people you need to see to keep yourself healthy. With men, I think we oftentimes accept those stereotypes, right? I mean, for me, growing up, you saw Al Bundy sitting on the couch with his hands in his pants, or Homer Simpson fat and lazy and just eating donuts all the time, right? And we see those things like, well, that's how men are, right? We're naturally disgusting, fat, sloppy, unhealthy individuals, or whatever the case may be. And it's like, no, I mean, we can be much more than that. And so understanding our potential as healthy individuals and then prioritizing that.
When I think about something that motivates me for health, I saw something one point, it said, we need to live how we want our children to live. And I see certain things with my kids. My oldest is 18 now. He's got a little gut, and he's kind of doesn't really have the healthiest of habits. And I think, how can I best motivate him? It's not going to be lecturing him. It's not going to be telling him, oh, haven't you had enough of that cereal or whatever it is, or don't you want to get moving? Or it's to show him and be an example and be a model of the thing that I want him to do, because I want him to be happy. I'm long past being able to go to the beach and take my shirt off. I haven't swam in 15 years because of that. No, I'm just kidding. But I want him to be able to do that. I want him to be able to be attractive and have a good mate. And someone was talking to me recently about attractiveness, and what's attractive is the healthy human form. You know, that's what we find attractive, is a person who's healthy. And when we're not healthy, you take any healthy human being and they're going to be attractive. It's like it's wired into us to see other people. And when we see someone who's attractive, and if we could say healthy and say it's the same thing, we also assume that means they're intelligent and capable and whatever. So there's so many layers of our life that are affected by our physical health. Talk about supplements and stuff like that. So, you know, vitamins and things to add in addition to just food. What are your thoughts on that stuff in general? Are there any dangers associated with that?
Well, I mean, being in the medical field and just, you know, being an athlete and things like that, supplements are like, I'm always like, what edge can I find to either perform better or recover from an injury faster or anything like that? And I'll say that the one supplement, if you are really going to take a supplement to enhance your well-being in some form, would be protein. And that doesn't mean you have to go out and buy protein bars or protein powder. I mean, like Gavin was saying, you can just increase your protein by eating foods that are high in protein. But our body structure does kind of determine that to some extent, and in our activity level. And I don't know exact numbers, but I want to say it's like somewhere between like 1.5 kilograms and 2 kilograms of, you know, weight per like gram of protein per day or something like that. And the thing is, you know, protein's such a hyped thing, but one of the things most people don't understand about protein is our body can only metabolize so much protein at one setting. So say, for example, I'm supposed to consume 90, you know, grams of protein in a day. That doesn't mean I need to go out and, you know, eat a 90 gram protein steak or whatever at one setting. My body's going to take maybe around somewhere between 20 and 30 grams and actually utilize it the correct way. The other 60 grams are probably just going to go straight to my belly. Like, it's not going to digest it and metabolize it the way that I'm intending to do that. So with every supplement, you have to really know how the body takes it in, metabolizes it, how it's used, all those things. So protein's good. It's studied. Every athlete, you know, in the world probably has some formula of them getting the right amount of protein, because it does actually work. In order to build muscle, you have to have protein. But, you know, supplements or whatever, I think if you're supposed to be on a medication, you'd be surprised how many people come to the ER and it's like, hey, you got diabetes or you got hypertension. When was the last time you took your medication? They're not taking their medications for, you know, whatever reason. So maybe if you have one of those conditions, just being compliant with your medication, taking it every day is one of your supplements you really need to be on top of. And that's going to enhance your health overall just by being compliant with those medications. So
that's awesome. Your thoughts on that kind of stuff, supplementation, Gavin?
So with supplements, you know, they're just that, they're supplements. So I would say, you know, I've talked to people where they become so reliant on supplements, you know, over reliant on them. Just remember that the majority of your nutrition can and will be met through your diet and whatnot. But if you're looking at supplements, I don't use a whole lot of supplements. Like Tanner said, I do get the Costco protein shakes, and I'll have one of those at work because I'm busy and mid morning I need a quick snack. They're quick and easy, and so they do provide some convenience there. But when you're looking at, you can get, there's just so many supplements out there, right? I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And you can easily become overconsumed with getting every single type of supplement out there, thinking that you're going to be more healthy for taking all of those. And you don't necessarily need to. I mean, I would say don't become too over-reliant or too hyper-focused on supplements. Look at what you're eating first. And if there's things that you feel like you need to add in there, you can add them in there as you need.
I was taking a mouthful of gummies recently, the gummy vitamins, and it was, all these vitamin D and zinc and multivitamin. And I added up the sugar. It was like 30 grams of sugar for all these vitamins. That's like 8 teaspoons of sugar in my vitamins. Like, so
Well, yeah,
I probably need to get back to traditional vitamins maybe, and not so much of the gummies.
Yeah, we took our kids to the dentist a little bit ago, and that was one thing that our pediatric dentist asked. She's like, well, does he take, or do they take vitamins? Because all the kids' vitamins are gummy vitamins. And he was like, yeah, there's so much sugar in those that they cause a lot of tooth decay. So
oh my goodness.
Here you are giving your kids these vitamins thinking you're being healthy for them, and you're just promoting the cavities and the rotting of their teeth.
Oh man. So what about rest, guys? So sleep and just general rest. You've talked a little bit, Tanner, about recovery and rest, after a big race. You've just done 26 miles and things like that. But what about daily routines and with rest and sleep and that kind of thing? We talked about exercise, diet. What about rest?
You need your rest. Our body needs sleep. It needs recovery. And it needs daily. Sleep, unfortunately, is something I struggle with. I can go days where I just do not sleep well, and it can be super frustrating. And so for all those guys out there that say, man, I have a hard time sleeping, like, I totally can sympathize with that and understand that. But it is important. We need to make rest, again, part of our healthy lifestyle. And if that means going out and getting a better mattress, like, spend the money on a mattress. Think of all the stupid things that we spend our money on. Get a good mattress. The first several years of being married, we slept on futons and just garbage mattresses. And I remember when I graduated, from physical therapy, I said, that is going to be my gift to myself. And I went out and bought a nice mattress.
Bed, like a proper.
Yeah. And it made a world of difference. Like, it was super comfortable. And I slept better on that than I did with sleep and other stuff. So yeah, invest in a good mattress, invest in a good pillow. Be aware of your positioning at night, what's going on. Because there's a lot of those type of factors that you can tweak to help yourself to be able to sleep better.
Wow. I would say, just from mental health, that's one of my first questions for people is like, tell me about your sleep. How much are you sleeping? Do you stay asleep? Are you waking up a lot? It's just critical with the mental health side of things. But so you're talking about the bed itself. We're supposed to spend a third of our lives in it.
Right.
So it might as well be something that's comfortable and promotes good sleep, even the pillow. And I'm just thinking of the typical guy, he buys a pillow, he's got his favorite pillow, and he keeps it for 30 years. Like, you might need to upgrade that stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
How about you, Tanner? Sleep.
You asked me about sleep, and honestly, I probably have some of the worst sleep habits than anyone.
The graveyard shift, yeah.
Exactly. So, half the week I'm sleeping during the day, and the other half of the week I'm sleeping at night. So I have a very complicated sleep schedule. But I think the only way that I've really been able to manage this, half sleeping during the day, half sleeping during the week, is I've found a way to make some kind of consistency. So whether I'm getting off an overnight shift, I get home in the morning, I try to go to sleep at the same time and wake up about the same time. And when I'm off of, working for a couple of days and I'm trying to do a normal routine, I try to make it a habit of going to sleep at the same time, waking up at the same time, regardless of, what went on that day or whatever. And I think the body has a clock that it follows, and it's like, hey, it's that time, let's go to sleep. When we live this crazy lifestyle of, we don't really have a set time, I think there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh man, this show's on tonight, I'm going to stay up late and watch this show because it's on, and so they're not following, a consistent pattern day in, day out of going to sleep at the same time, because there's all these other little factors that are like, well, this is more important. So priority. If you really prioritize your sleep and you make it a consistent pattern, I think that will really help you get better sleep and more meaningful sleep. And part of the reason why I think that, I can do what I do, whether that's working night shifts or running races or whatever, is because I do put some priority into sleep. Like, if you don't give that to your body, then you can't recover and you can't be performing or doing things at that level. And I think sleep is really something that's a problem for lots and lots of people. And that's why, there's Starbucks on every corner. There's a million different energy drinks, is because people aren't prioritizing sleep. And that's because there's so many cool things that you could be doing. Why would you want to sleep?
Right.
So let's just do another energy drink or a little more coffee, and I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
And that leads into other bad habits too. I mean, you're up in the middle of the night when your body probably should be sleeping. And here you are. I'm like, hey, I'm hungry, man. I just ate dinner like 3-4 hours ago. It's time for another meal. So then you're eating, and then you're like, well, now I'm going to go to bed because it's midnight and I'm tired. So you'd be surprised if you could just get a really consistent sleep pattern, whether that's sleep, if you have to work night shift and you sleep during the day, or, you don't have to do that, then just being consistent, I think, will really affect how good of quality of sleep you actually get, because your body will recognize that pattern and it'll be ready to go to bed when it's time to go to bed.
And you talk about just rest and recovery. I mean, that's not just sleep as well. I mean, it's not good to exercise 7 days a week. Our body needs some time to recover. So we're talking about doing all these activities and stuff. And we got to remember it's the recovery aspect is just as important to a proper training routine as the training itself. And so realizing that recovery doesn't just have to be sleep. I mean, yes, we need to sleep like we talked about, but having some time of just resting, whatever that resting looks like for you, is going to be advantageous for you.
That's awesome. Yeah, I got in that habit you were talking about, Tanner, I'm drinking 5 Monster Energy drinks a day. Then I'm so wired at night I couldn't sleep. But then knowing I needed to sleep, I'm taking Benadryl at night so I could go to sleep. So then 2 wasn't enough. So then I was taking 3 Benadryl at night. And then I'm so groggy in the morning. It's like I have to get up, and it's like I have to function, and now I need caffeine. And it was just an insane level of just chasing this.
It's a vicious cycle.
It's so ugly, man. And whenever I have had some injuries with activity and stuff like that, a lot of that had to do with overdoing it, not resting after the event or whatever it was. And so rest is just so important. I want to wrap this up here, you guys. I really appreciate you being here, but I wonder if you could just close us out here with the benefits of this kind of living outside of the physical. So you're healthy guys, you look great, you're running marathons and doing all these cool races and these events, and you're able to show up physically and do the things that you want to do. How do these principles help you in other areas of your life?
I would say running or cycling, whatever it is, one of the big things is it's an outlet for stress for me. Like, working in the ER is a very stressful thing. And I don't think that's the most stressful thing. I mean, whether it's you're stressed out because, your kids are crazy and whining and whatever, or, you've got other things going on that are stressing you out. I love just being able to say, you know what, I'm going to go out for a 6-mile run. I'm going to leave my phone at home. Not going to take any music, and I'm just going to think and reflect and, clear my mind and just, get away from everything. And that's I think that's probably one of the motivators too, that keeps me doing this on a regular basis, is it's my alone moment. I think everybody probably needs some alone moment. And I've just turned that alone moment into my exercise routine, I guess you could say, but it's an outlet for stress, and it's proven that exercise does relieve stress too. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of benefits in that, but not even just that, being part of a running community or cycling community, the camaraderie that's part of that, and, meeting people and socializing, and then you meet people that have the same goals as you. And the next thing you know, you're following them on Instagram or Facebook, and they're motivating you because they're out running, and you're like, oh, I need to, sign up for this race and do it with them because I want to see them again, or, and I try to tell people that, can I run fast? Yeah. I mean, I think I can run fast. There's people that are much faster than me, but running, trying to get people out to go run isn't necessarily about, hey, I'm trying to get you to run as fast as me or whatever. I think just getting people out and saying, hey, let's go hang out for a minute. If we decide we want to kind of go at a different pace, that's great. But hey, we met up, we talked, we exchanged a few words, we got to socialize for a bit and do something we wouldn't have probably done otherwise, but we had a reason to meet up. So I think the social aspect of it is meaningful, and people need to socialize. I think that's one thing that COVID has proven is, you know, how many people are like, man, I haven't seen my friend in years or can't do this anymore because of COVID. So getting out and just meeting up and socializing is an important interaction that we have to have in life.
Dude, there's so much there. You're talking about stress relief, some solitude. When you were saying you're stressed because your kids are crazy and screaming, remember he's my 2 doors down neighbor. He's probably heard that at my house. But yeah, you get away. Nobody wants to hang out with you when you're running. So
Right.
It's a way to get away from everybody. But in addition to solitude, also socializing, doing this with other people, accountability. You mentioned, I'm guessing you got contacts all over the world because of running.
Right.
You know, I mean, you're meeting with people at these races in different parts of the country. And how about you, Gavin? What, in addition to the health benefits, what other positives do you see coming out of trying to live this way?
Well, it's a piece of the puzzle, right? I mean, like we said, I mean, science has shown, the studies have shown it improves mental health. It reduces depression, and it improves your sex life. It improves your relationships. It decreases your chance for so many different diseases and dysfunctions and things like that. And so it's an important part of that puzzle for me, of trying to live a well-rounded life. And so for me, it's just, you know, it's something that, like I said, I'm a guy of routine. And so it's been part of my life since I was a teenager. And it's something that I'll continue to have it a part of my life because I do believe in it. And I believe that it's helped me be successful in other ways. And it's just nice, you know, when I go into a room with a patient and before I even introduce myself, they say, "Oh, you must be the physical therapist." Right? I mean, it feels good to know that I look the part of my profession. And then knowing, like, you know, being a father, being able to have that influence on my kids, you know, like, that I know that I'm modeling the behavior that I believe will help them as they're growing, and they can see, hey, Dad got up early and did this. And I remember Dad eating this, or Dad, you know, talking to us about what we should do or shouldn't do. You know, and I think that's important, you know, as men, we need to be good fathers. And that, to me, that's an important aspect of my fatherhood with my kids. And so, you know, you ask, what else does it do? It's just, it's a part of that full puzzle of trying to be a all around alpha guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of being a good guy and being a productive individual.
You mentioned mental health. I was thinking about this the other day. It makes me want to research it a little bit, but somebody was talking about how so much of depression and anxiety, the onset of that is in adolescence. And I'm thinking, what else correlates with that? We think about that as the hormonal changes and whatever that comes along with teens. But I think another correlating factor is that's when you stop running and playing. So one of the parks that my kids go to, Anthem Hills, it's right by middle school. And when my kids are there, they're running 100% of the time they're there, running around in the park. So the kids get out of the middle school and they come over and they're just kind of standing around.
Right.
They're standing around chit-chatting. They're not doing the things that they did in elementary school and when they were younger. And it's fascinating to me to think about that. It just maybe this week occurred to me that so many of our problems begin when we stop running and playing. And I know this is serious business for you. When you're paying money and traveling the country to go in a race and all this stuff, it's an investment in your health and whatever, but it's also play. You're not doing this if you're not having fun with it. And my guess is mentally and with your own stress and so forth, also the sexual benefits of that. I can say this because I'm still obese. I was once, I think they would call it super morbidly obese, but yeah, when I see someone like that, I'm thinking, oh, this poor dude, he ain't getting no booty. And if he does, I'm sure it's quite awkward. And so, yes, man, you get healthier and you have some discipline over your body and you can get some control and feel better and, you know, have some stamina. That helps in your job and that helps in the bedroom and that helps with your stress and with your families. You guys, I'm just very impressed, not just for what you've talked about here. I've watched you over the last 5 or 6 years. We actually go to church together in the same neighborhood congregation here, and I've seen their families. I've watched their kids. Their wives are smoking hot. Their kids are well behaved. They've got cool dogs and nice homes, and they're taking care of their business the best that I believe that they can. And it's to know that my kids can see these kinds of people and grow up with them. It feels like an honor to, and then have you come into my space here, my office, and share some of that. I really appreciate it. I don't have any right now because I'm getting them printed, but I'm going to get you a shirt or a hat or something cool to remember this. And maybe we'll have you back in the future for other of your adventures and things that you might share. When somebody comes here and they kill it and totally, like, I don't have to edit one thing. This has been kind of nice because you're so articulate and you speak so well and you have so many good things to say and you're an example of it. I sometimes think I speak well, but I'm not doing some of the shit that I'm supposed to be doing. You guys are out there getting it done. And so maybe I'll invite you back at some point in the future and have you, regular part of this if you'd like to. But
yeah, this was fun.
Really
That
appreciate
sounds
it,
good.
Tanner, Gavin. You guys are studs. I love that you're friends. I see you're hanging out, and I see neighbors stopping by, and it's like you're not just healthy physically. You seem to be healthy socially and spiritually in so many ways. So pleased to just know you and to get to know you even better here today. And thank you for being here. You guys, we're talking about this because if you're going to be a leader, if you're going to have life and create life and preserve life, you got to do that with yourself, and it starts with your body. Some of these things I definitely need to implement. This is a good time of year to be reflecting on your choices, on your physical health. I promise you it will affect your relationships, your productivity at work, your spirituality. Tell me that you're not at mile 25 and there's something spiritual maybe happening, or that you've completed some difficult thing. You've gone through this training regimen. Tell me that it's not spiritual in some form. Tell me that, that this doesn't benefit your family life and your marriage and your ability to focus, and just the pride that you come out of that. It's impressive. And I look forward to doing some of this myself. You've given me some ideas about things that I might need to do. And so appreciate you being here with us, guys. No excuses. Alpha up.
Gentlemen, you are the Alpha, and this is the Alpha Quorum.
That was killer.